In the winter of 1564, the Tsar of Russia loaded his most sacred possessions onto a fleet of sleds, his treasury, his icons, his family, and left Moscow without a word of explanation. He sent no letter, made no announcement, offered no reason. He simply left. By the second night, armed men were guarding empty corridors in the Kremlin, unsure who they were guarding them for. In that silence, the most powerful city in Russia realized it had no ruler, only a throne. And for the first time in decades, the throne looked vulnerable. Power does not collapse when a king leaves. It collapses when no one knows who is in control. Markets stall, nobles whisper, clergy hesitate, armies wait for orders that do not come. Waiting breeds imagination, imagination breeds anxiety, and anxiety demands certainty. And in doing so, he handed himself more power than any Russian ruler had ever held. Not by force, not by war, by absence. The most dangerous thing Ivan IV ever did was nothing, and he knew exactly what nothing would cost everyone else. This is not the story of a tyrant born violent. It is the story of a ruler who understood, with clinical precision, that instability, when designed carefully, lasts longer than loyalty and spreads faster than law. Forgotten thrones. We don't simply recount history. We examine the structures beneath it. Today, Ivan IV of Russia, the man history calls the Terrible. But Grozny did not originally mean evil. It meant formidable, awe-inspiring. A ruler whose presence altered the air in a room. By the end of this, you'll understand why that distinction matters, and why the moment he walked out of Moscow was not emotional instability, but structural calculation. To understand the collapse, you must first understand the construction. Ivan became ruler at 3 years old. His father died. His mother, likely poisoned by rival noble factions. What followed was not a childhood, it was exposure to insecurity. The boy prince watched powerful men manipulate the throne in his name. He was paraded as authority, while others exercised it. Useful as a symbol, disposable as a person. Sustained institutional betrayal produces hypervigilance, distrust, and a survival-level need for control. When power is taken from you early, you learn to ensure it can never be taken again. By 16, crowned Tsar, he understood something most rulers learn too late. Power is not seized once. It must be stabilized continuously. And in his early reign, he stabilized it effectively. He revised legal codes, limited corruption, strengthened central courts, established a representative assembly that, while limited, widened consultation. He built a standing army trained during peacetime, a structural innovation ahead of many European monarchies. He founded Russia's first printing press. When threatened, scribes burned it down. He rebuilt it. He expanded territory with strategic creativity. He constructed a modular fortress, transported it down the Volga, assembled it within enemy territory, and crushed the Kazan Khanate. He commissioned St. Basil's Cathedral, 9 domes rising like frozen flames, designed not merely as architecture, but as psychological monument. The records show competence, vision, administrative discipline. Power built him, loss sharpened him, and then, in 1560, something stabilizing disappeared. Anastasia, his wife of 13 years, died. She had moderated him, balanced him, softened suspicion with trust. He believed she was poisoned. Given the political environment, suspicion was not irrational. The court had poisoned before. When betrayal sensitivity meets intimate loss, perception narrows, complexity simplifies. There are enemies, and there is survival. At the same time, a trusted commander defected. The Livonian War stalled. Famine weakened public confidence. Epidemics followed. The state he had strengthened began to feel unstable. Modern historians speculate about neurological decline, possibly temporal lobe instability amplifying aggression. But paranoia did not originate from illness alone. It had been seeded in childhood. Paranoia, for Ivan, was pattern recognition stripped of restraint. By the mid-1560s, he was not unraveling. He was recalculating risk. December 1564. Ivan gathered sacred icons, treasury reserves, loyal guards, and departed Moscow for Alexandrov. Far enough to destabilize authority, close enough to reclaim it. Then he waited. Waiting is a form of control when everyone else is afraid to act first. Moscow entered suspension. The boyars lacked legitimacy without him. The legal framework required a Tsar to function. Public resentment toward nobles meant they could not risk ruling openly. Rumors multiplied. Foreign observers speculated. Internal factions hesitated. Delegations traveled to Alexandrov. First, dismissed. Second, dismissed. The third arrived without demands. Ivan presented a single condition: absolute authority, the unrestricted right to define and punish treason. No oversight, no appeal, no shared jurisdiction. He did not seize power violently. He engineered dependence. He made them request his supremacy. They agreed. He returned. The abdication was not surrender. It was leverage perfected. It revealed a principle. When institutions fear instability more than autocracy, they will choose control over balance. What followed was not chaos. It was systemic redesign. Ivan divided the realm into the Zemshchina, ordinary governance, and the Oprichnina, his personal dominion. The wealthiest territories fell under exclusive control. Nobles were expelled, estates redistributed, administrative boundaries blurred intentionally. He formed the Oprichniki black-clad enforcers, riding black horses, bearing a dog's head and broom as symbols, to sniff out treason, to sweep it away. But the symbols masked structure. He built incentive architecture. Oprichniki received confiscated lands from those accused of treason. Accusation led to seizure. Seizure led to reward. Reward incentivized further accusation. Suspicion became profitable. Anxiety became measurable. Loyalty was no longer assumed. It was audited. The incentive was not stability. It was perpetual discovery of threats. And systems built on threat detection must continually identify new threats to justify themselves. The church objected. Its metropolitan was arrested and eliminated. The final institutional counterweight dissolved. Then came Novgorod. A letter alleged betrayal. Investigation was secondary to demonstration. Roads were sealed. Entry controlled. Arrests began with clergy, then merchants, then households connected to them. The numbers remain debated. The psychological transformation does not. The city did not collapse structurally first, it collapsed internally. The city did not fall in a day. It stopped trusting in a day. Commerce slowed. Conversations shortened. Neighbors watched one another carefully. Silence became policy. And once silence becomes policy, coercion no longer needs spectacle. Distrust transitioned from event to environment. A system built to eliminate threats eventually searches for them everywhere. By the 1570s, Ivan trusted almost no one. He staged another abdication in 1575, installing a subordinate ruler, allowing church lands to be seized under alternate authority, then resuming control. The theater of power had replaced confidence in power. Governance narrowed into surveillance. When rule becomes uncertainty, management, strategic capacity erodes. Energy once used for expansion becomes consumed by internal containment. In November 1581, Ivan assaulted his pregnant daughter-in-law. His son intervened. Ivan struck him with an iron staff. The heir died. The painting by Repin centuries later captures not rage alone, but recognition the moment a ruler sees the cost of unrestrained authority. The system designed to eliminate threat had consumed succession itself. The Oprichnina, already weakened by military failure, was disbanded. The force that terrorized internal rivals proved ineffective against external invasion. Suppression can silence opposition. It cannot guarantee security. Ivan died in 1584, likely from a stroke, at 53. His reign spanned over 5 decades. He began as reformer, strategist, modernizer. The same psychological traits that enabled administrative reform, vigilance, intolerance of opposition, betrayal sensitivity, rendered him incapable of boundary. When pressure converged, he did not lose power. He removed limits. The Oprichnina was not chaos. It was logic without ceiling. A system built on suspicion demands escalation to remain credible. Escalation eventually encompasses everything. Systems outlive intentions. The Romanovs would later stabilize Russia, inherit expanded territory, consolidate imperial identity. They also inherited precedent surveillance culture, centralized authority, normalized suspicion. Ivan did not invent repression. He institutionalized its mechanics. The throne remained. The individuals occupying it changed. The architecture beneath it endured. Power without limit does not corrupt suddenly. It waits until vigilance becomes obsession, protection becomes purge, and loyalty becomes impossible to verify. And when loyalty becomes impossible to verify, trust disappears entirely. History remembers kings by their victories and monuments. We examine the systems they construct, and the moment they decide those systems no longer need limits,